Hey guys, Automobilista 2 is almost ready with their latest update version 1.6, which should arrive on Steam pretty soon. I was given permission to do a preview of the coming content and all the details that are in this patch, so this video is going to walk you through, well, all the changes that are there, but of course with a focus on tires and physics. The 1.6 update falls in line with the game being featured on the low-fuel motorsport platform, the same way that all the other games are featured on the platform. So we'll have the ELO, the safety rating, scheduled racing. The kind of a difference that we're getting with Automobilista compared to ACC is that we have, well, just more options available for multi-class. So while we could do GT3, 2, 4, the Cup Porsche in ACC, in Automobilista 2 will also have everything that comes with the IMSA license, which famously is the GTP cars or hypercars or LMDH, whatever you want to call them. They are included now, and they're also bringing new LMP2 cars, plus they are increasing the choice we have within the GT3 class, adding all the latest, well, not all, but most of the latest models that are driving in real life as well currently. There also have been changes to the graphics in terms of lighting, materials, the shaders. I think there were changes to the trees now being more 3D than before, not just 2D things spinning in circles. I think they also react to wet weather. There have been changes to the audio of the game, but I think the best demonstration of that is to really just look at the screen and listen for a moment here. There were also changes to the multiplayer in general in order to make this whole thing work with low-fuel motorsports and other platforms. There were changes to the AI if you're not into multiplayer, so you can play around with that too, but won't be a focus of this video. The UI has had a bit of an overhaul. It looks a bit more modern now, but in the end, the structure underneath largely stays the same. It just, yeah, kind of not these clumsy buttons as we had them before anymore. One big component, of course, in this update is again going to be the tire, because in the past, as you know, also from my videos and probably driving yourself, is that the game usually felt a bit slippery, a bit vague, not very direct, a bit floaty, several terms for the same thing, where the grip of the tire doesn't really seem to respond to the amount of slip. You could go around the corner with very little slip, you could go around the corner with a lot of slip, and seemingly didn't really matter for lap time. Now, the problem there is also that the cars were way too tolerant, and you could slip them enough without ever losing the grip. And that kind of made it unrealistic in the sense that there was no way to push the car over the limit, actually spin or lock up harshly or have massive amounts of understeer. So there are two things that define how a tire creates grip on the surface. One is a chemical component where the rubber just kind of makes a chemical connection with the road underneath. Okay, one component done. The other component is much more interesting, and that is also where this updates comes in here. And that is called hysteresis, and I urge you to really just look that up. Read a couple papers, maybe just the abstracts of the papers. That will do, I guess, to understand the concept. But I just want you to know this. Rubber is not an infinitely stiff material, as no material really is, but rubber is rather soft. Of course, the softness of the rubber changes with the temperature it has, and the warmer it becomes, the more soft a rubber is. The theory here with the hysteresis is that the rubber also flexes a bit, and the warmer it is, the different the flex the tire or the rubber will have also changes a bit. The theory here is that there are cracks in the road that they're calling as parity, or a roughness, and the rubber compound itself is trying to find these micro cracks in the asphalt. Okay, and that is how grip is produced when they are kind of intertwined. The problem is, when you are driving over the track, of course, you are coming across a lot of these cracks, and they change under the tire all the time. So the rubber has to find new cracks all the time while driving across the surface. And now the problem becomes there is only a certain speed difference, so to say, between the rubber and the road surface where they can still kind of intertwine and build that grip. And just to kind of to extend this picture here a little bit, when you go across that, the tire will flex a bit, and then it will kind of snap into the cracks, grip there, snap out, snap into the next crack, and do this several times per second on a microscopic level. The problem is when the slip becomes too much, and the speed differential, so to say, between the tire and the road becomes too much, then the tire is just going to slip across the surface without the rubber getting a chance to fill the cracks. And that's the point when you do not have grip anymore. So just a really oversimplified picture of that. Again, look this up because it's really interesting. But what this results in at the end of the day is that now we have a much sharper point of grip loss in Automobilista 2. So we have this phase where the tire will still find the cracks, and then suddenly at some point the slip will be too high and we will not find any grip anymore. And this will come rather sudden, and it can come on the front axle, it can come on the rear axle, and it will be a lot sharper experience, more sudden, more overwhelming, harder to recover than it was in the past. And that is the main change that this update brings. So let's look at some driving. So now we are in the BMW M Hybrid V8 Hypercar, or GTP, whatever you want to call it, the fastest class in GT racing currently. We are on the soft slick, and the different slick compounds here, they are really just for different temperature ranges. So if you're in really warm weather, you probably want to take a warmer slick. In cold temperatures, you want to take a soft slick. Let's see how 26 degrees and 55 degrees road here kind of play out. It might be a little too warm already for the soft one. But we'll stick to it anyway in order to kind of see the temperature effects here as well. So let's go out, starting with the electric engine, then the combustion turns on, and we're on the road. You can see the tires are fairly cold, so are the brakes. So the initial first braking is going to be really bad. The first few corners are going to be really bad. Similar like you already know from Le Mans Ultimate, for example, where the cold tires are just really tricky to drive. And I also know it from the tires in ACC, for example, the Porsche Cup or the GT2s or GT4s that are not operating with tire warmers. The first lap with cold tires is always a little bad. So we're gonna take a lap here to warm up the tire a bit and get a feeling. But maybe you can already see a bit that it just it's just not quite as floaty anymore as it was in the past, where the car just was kind of auto-rotating on the spot and the grip wasn't really pronounced and felt this vague. It's kind of, that term is kind of a thing now to describe everything that people find weird in simulations. So tires are coming alive slowly here. They are going to take a lap or two maybe to reach proper temperature, but I think from 67 degree of the tire they are already going to be fine. We're running, let's turn the traction control a little lower because it's fine to still control that, and we want to also be able to feel where the rear end really has the limit, and once, yeah, we will ultimately spin if we push too hard. The brake bias here 56. Let's go a bit on the edge here with 55, because the further we put it to the rear, the more risky of course it becomes, because once the rear tire locks, the grip is really going to be gone. So let's pick up the speed here a little bit and try to get a feeling, and I hope I can get that across, as to how the cars behave now. Initial braking, just watch bottom right of the screen. We can be really harsh in those cars because we have a lot of downforce, and then as we go closer to the corner we have to trail out of the brake a little because it will easily lock up otherwise. Now you could see it a little. There was a tiny bit of a lock up starting on one of the inside tires, and immediately the car started biting a bit and turning for the inside there, but the communication to the driver is really nice in that regard, and there's always room to react. I don't find it as aggressive and tricky to foresee and adjust as it is in iRacing, or also a tiny bit, but to a lesser degree already in Automobilista, in Le Mans Ultimate. Here I feel the car communicates a little better. There's a bit more room still in this department with tire lockups to always recover the tire in, so to say, longitudinal grip situations. But in the lateral situations, you now really have to take care a bit how much you push into the tire, because often you'll be in a situation where it feels like the tire has more grip, and you as a driver are going to be very tempted to push a little harder, but once you get too confident, the car is definitely going to bite back. So if we brake here and we brake a bit deep into the turn, now we're just locking up the front heavily there, and we're definitely going wide, no chance to really stay on the track whatsoever. And if we do this too aggressive, then you will also see that the tires are going to start producing a lot of tire wear. Let's dial the brake bias even further back to really get the limit of the car towards the rear axle, so you can see how quickly it's actually going to spin. The other component is also in the fast turn, in particular the very long right-hander. If we push too much there, there's a fair chance to lose the rear end. And if here the TC saves us a bit, right, and a bit of sliding is still possible, but it's definitely not the fastest way anymore. You will immediately see your delta become red when you push too much into the tire, so it's no place to be anymore, and it's also much more of a slippery slope. If we turn off the traction control here, you will see why. Of course, in low speed there's going to be less traction as in high speed when the downforce kicks in, but for example the low speed traction is much better and higher and easier to manage than in Le Mans Ultimate 4, of course, where the cars seemingly do not have any low speed traction out of tight corners, and it's much easier here to deal with that, much more predictable. See, and now the fast corner here, you can already tell the rear stepping out, and then it's just gone if you overdo it. So we definitely now need to drive with the traction control here, because the risk of actually spinning the car is going to be much higher. Let's actually fast forward to and then it just snaps away and you're gone. So this is I feel a huge improvement here. When you are pushing a tiny bit too much, you're definitely not rewarded in terms of lap time. Quite the opposite, you are going to be punished ultimately with a crash. The slower cars, less downforce dependent cars, they allow more pushing, so to say. There is a bit more room, but you will have the same kind of behavior in all the slick running cars now that this limit now is a much narrower margin and you can more easily screw this up. Let's go to the pits and just try the other tire, because maybe if you watch closely you were able to see that the soft clicks were getting a tiny bit too warm already. So let's see how it plays out when we're going for a medium slick. We are also on a heavily rubbered in track. If we were on a track with just no rubber, so green or just a low amount of rubber, then the grip levels would be less as well, and the slipping of the tire would feel a tiny bit different again as well. So let's see how it maybe changes with, oh yeah, I forgot the tires are cold, so now it's not turning anymore. The brakes are cold as well. The initial braking, if I just choose the same point as before, we're just not getting the car slowed down nicely for the first corner here. So just make sure when you leave the pits the first time, take a bit of care. You need temperature in race cars, both on the tires and the brake, else nothing really works. What's really nice here is, compared to both iRacing and Le Mans Ultimate really, is that you don't really have to worry about your battery. It's going to be there. It's going to do its thing. It's going to contribute to the car's, well, engine total output, but you don't really have to worry about it or put it in qualifying mode or whatever. If you just leave it on auto, it will manage the battery just about nicely. So taking this kind of hassle a bit out of the equation, which is, well, I'd say kind of nice, because at least for me, I feel it's always much more about the driving than wanting to adjust so many settings in the car that seem like a, yeah, kind of artificial hurdle to the driving experience. So it's kind of nice. The auto mode usually it's just going to be fine for, yeah, the majority of situations. It usually never runs out of battery there, which is the idea, and also never runs full, so you can still use or build energy under braking. So a lot of grip here in high downforce situations. We can just go flat out into that turn already. End of the first lap. The temperature is there. So let's be very aggressive here with the brake bias. Dial it back to almost 50-50, whatever that exactly means in terms of how much brake force is on which axle. But let's see how much we can push it. Traction control again on a rather high setting. Let's go down to 1. Definitely locking the rears there, but as you can see, it's kind of sharp, but at the same time you can still recover if you react quick enough, let go of the brake. The tires will find grip again. So it's not immediately gone, and I'd probably say, okay, let's put the brake bias a tiny bit more forward for less risk, more comfort, producing less errors. And then compared to Le Mans Ultimate, we have so much more traction in slow speed without the traction control needing to interfere. And I feel this is, I don't know, feels nicer to drive. I don't exactly know if this is much more realistic in terms of what the real cars do and how they struggle with low speed grip, but this is certainly the nicer way to play it. So pushing a bit here with the traction control, much safer. We can be aggressive here, and you can see it's going to take away just about enough power in order to not spin the car. And also last time around with the softest compound, we were having a lot more temperature on the rear tires. So it seems the medium slick here is a better fit for the temperature environment we are in. Maybe we could argue that the traction control is still a bit too good, kinder, that even traction control 1, car getting nervous there, that even traction control 1 is a bit too much interfering, and there isn't really a reason to go much higher with the TC. Let me push a little more though, because I want to show you also the temperature effect that we are going to have. So if I keep pushing into the tire like this a little bit, it should start to produce more temperature. And at some point, once the temperature becomes too high, we get the same effect as we do when we're pushing too much in an individual corner. The overall grip of the tire is going to be reduced and a sudden crash or snap can happen. Is this flat perhaps? No, not quite. Nope. Yeah. That just about a save there. Definitely lots of time. Now it doesn't let me go into that slide anymore with the TC here. So we can be really aggressive, but you see the rear temperature is now increasing a bit, and I fear into the next corner it might, yeah, I can feel already the balance of the car moving a little. The rear is getting more loose, so if we keep pushing into that direction, we are going to heat the rear tire up too much, and we are going to suffer the consequences. All right, let's stop there a little. And I hope this was giving you a bit of an idea. You can find all those patterns in all the cars in the game now that are on the slick tires. So you have the same behavior in the GT3s, that if you push too hard with a too aggressive brake bias, the rear end is going to punish you. If you push too hard in the corners, are too aggressive on power for too long, you'll also get the tire into a situation where it ultimately pretty suddenly not be able to produce the grip anymore, and that is when you're kind of putting everything on the line, risking your race and crashing into a wall. For now, I hope the update comes out very soon for you so you can get your hands on this as well, and then I hope LFM is ready, and I know they are, to pick this up. I'm looking forward to do some multi-class races on another platform to add something to our already pretty damn good GT3 experience on ACC. And then we can probably fill the winter months until AC Evo finally comes out in early access.